Okay, before I start, this episode is actually being recorded kind of 2 weeks in advance, and for two reasons. So the first one is a lot of the points that I make in this podcast are actually going to be used as part of a debate which is going on in London where one of my friends is speaking. So I don't want to take away from anything that he'll be saying. So this episode will be going live after the debate. So you can kind of see this in retrospect to what he may have said. And the other point being that I will be away, so I won't actually have time to record this during the week. So that's why I'm just recording this a bit ahead of time. But yeah, enjoy the episode. Hi everybody, how's it going? I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another episode of Blockchain and Beyond. As always, I'm your host Farzan. On today's episode, I'm going to be discussing some of the problems that we have within crypto and also some of the criticisms about crypto in general. So I've got a list of about 3 or 4 things that I'm going to go over in particular, and these are going to relate to self-custody of wallets, of multi-signature wallets, play-to-earn games, money laundering, and also the user experience within crypto. So starting off, I'm going to talk about the self-custody problem within crypto. So as most people know, when you have a crypto wallet, you have to manage your own keys. And for anyone unfamiliar with the concept, keys are basically what you use to make transactions. So you will generally have 2 sets of keys, a private key and a public key. So your public key is what people can actually use to verify your messages and also to send you any crypto. But then you also have your private key, which is actually used to sign transactions to say, yes, I am indeed the one who is sending this transaction. And the problem really comes down to people being quite forgetful, me included. So we may write down our private keys and we may forget where we've put in them, or we may somehow lose access to them if we've saved them on our computer, which is not recommended. We may accidentally delete the file and then therefore lose our keys. So there's a whole host of ways that we can actually lose access to our keys. And once you lose access to your keys, they're almost impossible to recover, meaning that you can actually lose all of your holdings. And here is where I'll actually draw a comparison to traditional finance, or the traditional banking system, where you have an account with your bank. And if you were to lose your username or your password, the bank would actually have some sort of system to help recover your username or your password, or to reset it, so then you can set up a new one. So in this way, it's a lot safer in traditional finance, because if you were to lose your information, you would actually have ways to recover it. However, this can sometimes take quite a lot of time. They may require details of your passport or your driving license or your proof of address to actually prove that you are who you say you are. Otherwise, anyone could pretend to be you and say that you've lost your details and would try to get new details from the bank. But within the crypto space, there are actually solutions being built to help combat this. So the first one is the idea of social recovery wallets. So these are special wallets where a number of delegators are actually assigned. For example, you may have 5 delegators. And now if I was to lose my wallet, I can ask a number of my guardians, for example, 3 of my guardians, to actually sign a message on this platform, and this will regenerate a signing key for me. So these 5 people would obviously be someone that I trust. So these could be my friends or my family. Or these could even be 5 different devices I have around the house with these wallets installed. So then if my wallet, my main wallet, was to get lost or stolen, using these other devices or by reaching out to these people, I could ask them to sign a transaction on a website, and once enough signatures are received, for example 3 of these signatures out of my 5 guardians, a new signing key will be generated for me. So this would be used alongside smart contracts, and this can also invalidate any previous signing keys. So this means if my wallet was stolen by someone, I could ask my guardians to generate me a new key, which would also effectively lock out the thief from accessing any of my funds. And I can see this concept being applied to things like multi-signature wallets. So multi-sig wallets are almost like joint bank accounts where you need to have signatures from both parties for a transaction to be sent through. Multi-sig wallets work in the same way. There may be 2 or more parties who need to sign a transaction before the transaction is actually sent through. And both of these parties can actually use social recovery wallets, which are spread out amongst further friends or families or other delegates, to help restore the keys if they were to get lost. Because with a multi-sig wallet, if you require 2 people to sign the transaction, if only one person was to lose their keys, the wallet would become defunct. So social recovery wallets actually help maintain the decentralized status of crypto whereby power is delegated to people of your choosing, whether that's your friends or your families or even other devices that you actually hold. Now we can move on to the second point, and this is a slightly different idea, and this is about play to earn NFT slash crypto slash blockchain based games. So we've seen a lot of these popping up, with one of the first ones or one of the big ones being Axie Infinity, and there are a number of other ones which are popping up all over the place. And most of them go against the idea of what games should be. I think games should be fun. That is the main purpose of a game, is for you to spend time and enjoy yourself. And the play to earn feature should come as a secondary kind of preference or activity or function within the game. And what I think a lot of these play to earn games are getting wrong is that they are focusing on the play to earn part rather than focusing on the fun aspect of the game. So a lot of these are making games that we've seen time and time before, and they're not really innovating in the space, and they're almost to an extent a cash grab for people to flood the market in the game to, gather resources and then try sell them to other people. And it's very rarely that we're seeing any new and inventive features being added into these games, which then makes the game not fun, as you've already played similar games in the past. But I think there's another side to this that people are not fully considering. So in the past few years, games have started to gear more towards microtransactions or smaller transactions. What this means is that you can spend small amounts of money within a game to help make your character stronger or look different, or to help support you in the game. And this is the new way that game developers are actually monetizing their games, as they realize that people are less likely to buy a game or less likely to pay a subscription for a game, but would be happy to spend money within the game that they actually enjoy. So these new play to earn games are actually following the trends that we're seeing. It's the idea that you can buy small additional resources to help support you in the game, rather than having to pay for the game or to pay a subscription to play the game, as there's still quite a lot of games that follow this sort of model. And people are actually willing to pay. A lot of Western games, also a lot of Eastern MMOs, especially games from like Korea and China, people pay a lot of money to actually make their characters better and stronger within these games. So, there's actually a market for this sort of thing. And this is where there's actually a benefit to wider society. So in a lot of societies, people are happy and willing to pay for these games. But then you also have people in certain countries, and for this example, I'll use Venezuela. So a lot of Venezuelans are known for playing another game called RuneScape, which is a traditional MMORPG. And within this, they actually collect items within the game to earn gold inside this game. They are then able to sell this gold for actual dollars, which they can then use in their day-to-day lives to support their families. And the reason this happens is quite interesting, because in these countries, the local economy is not strong enough to sustain either the people or the families that are living there. So these people then have to effectively outsource their labor. So they are here playing games to earn money in dollars, which can then be used to actually buy food and electricity that they need to live their lives. And we've seen these in some of the crypto games as well. So Axie Infinity, as an example, there were a lot of people from either like the Philippines or Indonesia who are actually getting into Axie Infinity to earn the in-game currency, which they could then sell for dollars. And that's because the dollar is worth a lot more when converting it to their local currency, meaning they could make a honest wage out of playing these games. And even a lot of the other games that I'm involved with, one of the main ones being Vulcanverse, I've seen an influx of people from all over the world who are playing this game as a means to help support their families. However, this all boils down into the fact that developers need to make a game which is actually fun to play and that people would be willing to spend money on, rather than focusing on a game which is effectively a cash grab, because that game will die out much quickly than a game that has been developed over a long period of time with a lot of thought put into the game's processes. And the developers actually have a lot to gain from this. So as part of the smart contracts within the game, all transactions of the game's assets which are traded between players, a percentage of which can actually be redirected directly to the developers' wallets, meaning the developers can actually help sustain themselves while making a game that is actually fun to play. So the next issue that I actually want to talk about is somewhat of a macro issue. So this is about money laundering and crypto being used in the black market. And this comes from recent news that some high profile individuals may actually be trying to hide their funds using cryptocurrencies to avoid paying taxes or to avoid the assets being confiscated. And this comes because of the idea that anyone can create a crypto wallet and these are effectively anonymous. What the argument doesn't stand up to is that you can't track people. And this is because everything on the blockchain is documented. If I was to make a new wallet on a blockchain and send it some funds, everyone would have this information to see. There's no way for me to hide it. But then there's also tools within the crypto space that actually help potential criminals launder their money. And this comes from the idea of when different platforms may get breached and they may lose their funds, there's actually ways to quote unquote wash or clean their money. And one of these, for example, is called Whirlpool. And what Whirlpool is a set of smart contracts on Ethereum where using one address you can send it some funds and into a smart contract, and then you can also delegate a number of new wallets to actually receive these funds and over a specified amount of time. For example, someone who had some ill-gotten gains could use this platform to help distribute their ill-gotten gains across a number of wallets, whether that's 1 or 5 or 10 wallets, over a period of time. So they may choose that over a period of 3 to 6 months, they would redistribute what they had stolen to these anonymous wallets. And then eventually later down the line, they can connect these anonymous wallets to exchanges and actually use this as a method to withdraw the money into their real life bank accounts. And that's quite a big problem because that means people can exploit different platforms and still have a way to extract this money into their real life bank accounts, meaning many people are left out of pocket. And now the final thing that I wanted to talk about was the user experience within crypto, and in particular cryptocurrency exchanges and the apps that they use. So most of these platforms have really bad user experience. There's a lot of menus, there's a lot of buttons, and it's difficult to understand what you're doing. However, some platforms do this really well, and the main one is Coinbase. So Coinbase was the first platform I used, and their onboarding process is very simple. It's very straightforward. It's very hard to get confused, and they take you through step by step. As a result, they do charge relatively high fees compared to these other apps, but that's almost the price you have to pay for a simple and smooth onboarding process, and many people don't mind paying these fees. However, what happened with me was once I got used to Coinbase and I understood their fee structure, I started to effectively look for other platforms that had lower fees, and I eventually, graduated off of the Coinbase app to use other apps such as Crypto.com or Binance or even Coinbase Pro, which actually have a lot lower fees. The other app with a relatively good onboarding process, in my opinion, is Crypto.com, and I found it really simple to use when I first set it up, but I think at the time they weren't as big or they weren't as popular, so there wasn't as much news about them in the space. But more recently, people are usually complaining about their customer service not being that great, which has been improving slightly over time. And I've not really had many customer service issues, so I can't really say. But in general, the process of onboarding from downloading the app to actually buying crypto was quite straightforward. And then there's many other apps such as Binance and KuCoin. I find their apps really complicated to use, especially if you're looking at the perspective of a new person in this space. And this can put people off because there's a lot of buttons and menus that they don't understand. And because crypto in general is something new for them, they don't want to lose out because they don't understand what's going on. And with that actually covers everything for today. So we went over the idea of social recovery wallets to help with wallet recovery, and in the context of multi-signature wallets, we talked about play to earn NFT crypto games kind of being a cash grab. We talked slightly about money laundering and how there's actual ways within crypto to help launder money, which isn't a good thing and it's not something that I condone, but it's something that we should definitely be aware of. And then there's also, I discussed the fact that the user experience on a lot of these crypto apps isn't that great, and there's very few apps that actually do it right. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out to me on any of my social media platforms. It'll be good to hear from you. But until next time, goodbye.